Before time began, God designed humanity for harmony. We were meant to live in deep, loving relationship with Him and with each other. Our unity would reflect God's own triune nature, a perfect web of connection and communion. Picture this, if you will, a grand feast laid out, abundant and enticing, yet no one is there to partake. There is no laughter echoing, no stories being shared, no fellowship at the table. That, my friends, is the essence of hell, an eternal banquet with no guest, a celebration with no attendees. Two brothers bound by blood, but divided by envy and resentment. Cain, consumed by bitterness, chose not to confront his feelings of disconnection or seek reconciliation with his brother. Instead, he allowed his anger and jealousy to fester, leading to the first murder, and confuse their language so that they will not understand one another. As speech, he redefined religious life, not in terms of rituals or rules, but in terms of relationships. Love for God and love for neighbor became the greatest commandment, the cornerstone of the kingdom. His parables, including the well-known parable of the unforgiving servant, reveal the peril of holding grudges. Heaven is depicted as a place of perfect fellowship, of unending communion with God and fellow believers. In this eternal state, there is no room for separation, disconnection, or disunity. All who have chosen love, forgiveness, and reconciliation find themselves gathered together in the presence of the divine. Hell, on the other hand, is portrayed as a place of outer darkness, of eternal separation. The torment of hell lies not just in physical suffering, but in the utter absence of love, of fellowship, and of God's presence. Those who have rejected the path of unity, forgiveness, and communion find themselves isolated, cut off from the joy of God's presence and the warmth of fellowship. Unforgiveness, Jesus taught, jeopardizes our own spiritual well-being and eternal destiny. It teaches us that heaven is not a place we attain individually by meeting certain conditions. It is a state of being in right relationship with God and with each other. It is a place of unity, forgiveness, and love. Conversely, hell is not just a place of fire and brimstone. It is a place of isolation, of separation, and of the absence of love. It keeps us trapped in the logic of hell, reinforcing patterns of disconnection and resentment. And every choice we reject, every offense we hold on to, every bond we break, every division we embrace, moves us closer to hell. The choice, my friends, is ultimately ours. Will we choose love and unity, or will we choose disconnection and separation? Will we walk the path of heaven, or will we take the road that leads to hell? The message is clear. Let us not wait. Let us not delay. Let us embrace the path of heaven now, for it is a journey worth taking, a destination worth reaching, a life worth living. And thus, the unity they sought turned to disarray, their relationships fractured, their communications severed. The vertical beam represents restoration to God, bridging the chasm between humanity and the divine. The horizontal beam symbolizes restoration to others, healing broken relationships and mending fractured bonds. The cross is a testament to God's relentless pursuit of unity, a rejection of the divisive forces that seek to tear us apart. To reject this reconciliation, to turn away from this restored relationship is, in essence, to turn away from heaven itself. This narrative underscores that hell's logic often lurks where we least expect it. Even in places that seem united, harmonious, and purposeful, unity, love, and grace were not optional elements for Christians, but the very essence of their faith. The early church thrived not in spite of its internal differences, but because of its commitment to living out the reality of heaven in the present. Paul's words serve as a constant reminder that disunity, division, and pride are antithetical to the very nature of the church and the kingdom it represents. It challenges us to examine the motives behind our unity, reminding us that relationships built on pride, exclusion, or anything other than love are destined to fail. The haunting question, "Where is your brother?" serves as both an accusation and a lament, a recognition of the brokenness that had crept into their relationship and a plea for its restoration. Yet Cain's response, "I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper?" epitomizes a tragic choice to reject connection, to ignore the cries for unity, and to embrace the logic of hell, the logic of separation. But sin shattered this intended unity, sowing distrust, pride, unforgiveness, and disconnection. And these became the root causes of relational ruin and ultimately spiritual exile. It whispers in our ears, telling us to turn away from love, to close the door on forgiveness, to abandon the pursuit of unity. People coming together united in their ambition to build a tower that reaches heaven. At first glance, it might seem like a tale of hubris, a reminder of humanity's tendency to exalt itself. Yet when we delve deeper, we see a story of disunity masquerading as unity. The people's intention was not to ascend to God, but to build a monument to themselves. Their desire was not for a closer walk with the divine, but for self-glorification. In their misguided unity, they excluded God, and in doing so, they sowed the seeds of their own disconnection. The confusion that followed led to their scattering, to the fragmentation of their community, and with that, to the erosion of their potential for unity. Hell's logic is seductive, suggesting that our pain, our anger, our hurt is justified. that it gives us license to harm, to destroy, to isolate. It promises that in distancing ourselves from others, we somehow become stronger, more resilient. But this couldn't be further from the truth. The death of Abel wasn't just a physical loss, it was a spiritual one. It severed another tie that could have connected back to God and to life, thus deepening their estrangement. Join me as we explore what the Bible reveals about hell, not merely as a place of fire and torment, but as a realm of broken, irreparable relationships. For the first time, the idea of absence, of being cut off, of exclusion, became a reality. The expulsion from Eden symbolized this. They were cast out of the garden, separated from the source of life and abundance. And with that, the promise of a greater torment, a foreshadowing of hell. Notice the language. He will bitterly regret his separation from the Lord. This isn't just a physical expulsion, it's a spiritual one, an alienation from the divine presence that would culminate in eternal separation. The unity with God, once so intimate, was severed. The harmony with their environment, once so complete, was broken. And within them, a sense of disconnection and disunity took root, a harbinger of the torment that awaits those who persist in their rebellion. Our journey begins in the very garden of our existence, Eden, in the idyllic setting of lush beauty and God's warm presence. Adam and Eve, the progenitors of humanity, enjoyed perfect communion with their Creator. Their relationship was unmarred by deceit, distrust, or disconnection. But the serpent's subtle whisper introduced a wedge of doubt, a questioning of God's words and intentions. And with that, the first fracture appeared in the seamless garment of unity. It wasn't just an intellectual disagreement. It was a breach at the heart level, a choice to believe the lie that would sever the very fabric of their relationship with God and with each other. This moment of disobedience ushered in shame, fear, and separation. And with that, the knowledge of good and evil. Their eyes were opened, not to enlightenment, but to a new set of fears and insecurities. They hid from God, once their closest companion, and with that, the first experience of guilt and alienation began. In that moment, the seeds of hell were sown, the seeds of separation, mistrust, and fear. But this isn't where the story ends. It echoes tragically in the story of Cain and Abel. But what struck me profoundly as I studied the text was that hellish logic doesn't reside in a distant future, it seeps into our present. Consider, if you will, the Tower of Babel, a narrative that on the surface seems like a mere story of human pride. And then came the voice that spoke of division, saying, if this is their intent, let us go down. Yet amidst this backdrop of disunity, Jesus emerged as the ultimate reconciler. Furthermore, consider the cross, not just as a symbol of sacrifice, but as an embodiment of restoration. Moreover, the Apostle Paul, in his letters to the early church, emphasized that the church, the body of Christ, was designed to be a living example of heaven. Finally, Revelation offers a striking contrast between heaven and hell. So my friends, what does this profound truth about hell teach us? As we ponder this truth, may we remember that every choice we make in this life, every act of kindness, every gesture of forgiveness, every effort to reconcile, every step towards unity, is a step towards heaven.